Welcome to See Me Teach Level 4 Training. You're going to learn about the M codes, which are the student misbehaviors and the teacher's reaction to those misbehaviors. You will start by learning the 4 M codes, and then you will practice coding using those M codes. The 4 M codes are: M10 is a single student misbehavior. M11 is when the teacher addresses that student misbehavior. M12 is when a group of 2 or more students are misbehaving. And M13 is when the teacher addresses that group of students who are misbehaving. Okay, we just took a look at the definition of the 4 M codes, M10 through M13, and here they are on the quantitative data collection screen. Let's take a look at how we use these. Now, normally I would use these with the video running, but the audio will overwhelm my voice. So let's not play the video, and I will just show you how this might work and talk you through it. So let's say that we're teaching along and the teacher asks a yes/no question. And remember, we click at the very end of that question, right? And we're pausing, but Sean is misbehaving. So without using the seating chart, I could go over here and I could say Sean is misbehaving, or I could say a student is misbehaving. And maybe another student in the back row is misbehaving as it's silent and the teacher's waiting for a response. And then finally a student responds, and we click at the end of that student response. And then the teacher starts lecturing. So we don't press it yet. We wait till they're done lecturing, and then we press the T1 button. But in the meantime, let's say CJ in the back row here is misbehaving, so we click to note that she's misbehaving. And again, it's an action only. It's not timing her misbehavior because we're timing what the teacher is currently doing. But she continues misbehaving, so I feel the need to click it again to say a student is still misbehaving. And the teacher keeps lecturing. And maybe I click it again to say a student is misbehaving. Now, our clock is not showing accurate information because our clock is not running and the video is not running, but we're just simulating this. But finally, I stop teaching. So I stop teaching and I stop lecturing, and I will click on Done Presenting Information. And I move over to here because I've begun to address CJ's misbehaviors. And I talk to her and the whole class about misbehaviors. And when I'm done and I start to go back to teaching, I click Teacher Address the Misbehaviors, because this is a event and timing code that we click at the end of the event. So whereas we could click student misbehavior at any time and it didn't disrupt the timing, teacher addressing that single student misbehavior or teacher addressing the group, they have to stop teaching to address the students. So it's clicked at the end of when they finish addressing the student or students. All right, so let's say go back to presenting information and lecturing again. I have CJ misbehaving again and CJ misbehaving again, and I stop teaching, click, and I come down here, and it wasn't only CJ, it was Kevin and Ed this time too. And so now I start addressing that small group of students, and when I finish, I click Group Misbehave, I click M13, the teacher addresses the group that's misbehaving. So let's say that I'm lecturing again. During that time, I have CJ misbehaving, and I have Ed misbehaving, and I have Kevin misbehaving. In fact, now I have a small group misbehaving. So I'm going to click to notate that my small group is misbehaving, and they're still misbehaving. And I keep on lecturing. But finally I stop lecturing. Click, end the event. And I come down here and I start to address the misbehaviors of that group. And when I finish, I click Teacher Addresses Group Misbehavior. It's an event and timing again, so I click at the end of when I finish addressing those students. Now that's basically all you do to collect misbehavior events. But we can take it a step further and we can say, let's narrow it down to who is misbehaving so we have a more accurate record of who is misbehaving in our class. And I can be lecturing again, and let's say while I'm lecturing, Sean misbehaves. So student 5, I clicked on that first, and then M10. And then Ed misbehaves. Click on student 4 Ed and misbehave. And then CJ misbehaves. Click. And then CJ misbehaves again. Click. And then I go, what's going on? I stop lecturing. And I move into my teacher addresses the group misbehavior. And I wait till I'm done chewing them out or setting them straight or assigning penalties, whatever it is I do as a teacher. Taking them out to the hallway, talking to them. And when I'm done with that, I go click. So when I say I go, I as the observer click, because it's an event and timing code. So notice up here, when I use the student numbers, they were placed in front of the code. And this will be significant because when I go to my analysis page, there will be a seating chart and a heat map of how many times individual students misbehaved. All right, so that's all you really have to do to capture student misbehaviors and the teacher reaction to them. Now, let's click Done. Let's say, yes, I'm done. And let's go over here and write to the management summary. Okay? Now, let's look at the data. First of all, we have the raw data over here. NC0 means I clicked on M10, a single student misbehavior, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 times. And I clicked on Sean's number before M10 once, and I clicked on CJ's number before M10 once. Now, these times are all 1:48. That's because I had stopped the clock. If I hadn't stopped the clock, these times would be an accurate representation of exactly when those students did their misbehaviors. And notice I had 15 different single student misbehaviors. I addressed the single student misbehaviors twice. I had 4 small group misbehaviors, or the whole group. That means anywhere from 2 or more on, if you remember the definition. And I addressed the whole group 3 different times. If we go over to the seating chart heat map, we can see that the single student number 5 with Sean, I clicked on his number once. Even though he might have been misbehaving more times, I did not tag him and his seating chart number to M10 more than one time. And I did not tag CJ's misbehavior more than one time. Now, if I had tagged all of these with student numbers, this seating chart would look very different. And I'll show you some examples of those in a second. In fact, let me go there now. Now, I pulled up a different lesson, and you see the seating chart has not only single student seat numbers, but it also has a group number. So here's like group 1 and students 1, 2, 3, and 4, and group 6, students 21, 22, 23, and 24. And here you see a more vivid heat map where this student misbehaved 4 times and these students misbehaved once. Our data over here, see NC0, is where they did not use a student number in front of M10. But here we have student 19, 21, 24, and 23, and these are exact times on the clock when those students misbehaved. There was a total of 16 single student misbehaviors. The teacher addressed that 7 times. There were a total of 3 group misbehaviors, and the teacher addressed that once. Now this is pretty cool because we can say, well, let's look at student number 24. And we can click on this line and it will show us and isolate student 24's misbehavior events. Or where did student 23 misbehave? Or even more importantly, if I go back over and click here again, we can see that there was 3 different parts of a lesson, 3 different types of L codes. This is a different L code than this one and then this one. But it shows that the misbehaviors were distributed fairly evenly throughout all the 3 different types of lessons lesson types that we were teaching that day, which is interesting. The black bars are the student misbehaviors. The red bars are where the teacher intervened. Well, let's take a look at a different lesson, and let's look at the management data analysis. So here when you click on management summary, we have the student heat map. We have 2 students that have 1 incident of a misbehavior. If we go over here, that's because we coded student 21 once and we coded student 41 once, and we had 1 other misbehavior event that wasn't coded to a particular student with a student number in front of M10. Our M10 numbers were 3, intervened once with a single student misbehavior. There was one group of students misbehaving, an M12 event, and the teacher intervened there once also. Now look what happens when I click on M11. Okay? It shows me the 3 individual student events, and it shows me in red the one time that the teacher intervened on those single student events. So there was 3 times a student misbehaved, but the teacher intervened once. Let's go up to M12 and M13, the group misbehaviors, and let's click on that. And that was the time where there was a group misbehavior in black, and in red it shows the teacher misbehavior in red. So we can actually look to see when the teacher was intervening with the misbehaviors through the use of this data table and clicking on things. The last thing I want to show you is, and I can't show it here very well, but if I wanted to see student 21, maybe I know that's little Johnny, and little Johnny is usually a problem of mine, but I want to take a closer look at little Johnny and perhaps the intervention I used. If I had video, this data point would be linked to it, and clicking on this black bar would take me to that event in the video segments so I could watch that. The same with the red bars. I could click on the red bars and it would take me to that video event, and I could watch to see how I intervened or how I reacted to those misbehavior events. If I want to get back to all of my student misbehaviors, I go back and click on Management Summary. And that's basically the gist of how you use the Management Summary data and analysis.